Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today we're going to read some channelings from Quo dealing with the grid, an energy grid that we have around the planet, ways we can heal it, and all the other things that Quo loves to talk about. Quo is a group of higher density beings from an evolved, advanced civilization that channel through LL research questions of a spiritual nature. And they've been doing this for a very long time, for 50 years. Many of these channeling sessions carry some very profound spiritual wisdom, and I really enjoy reading these words. We begin with a channeling delivered on January 5th, 2003. The question today has to do with the grid of our planet as we are moving from third into fourth density. We are assuming that there are points on this grid that are in need of some attention, some sort of focusing energy, which we would like to be able to do in our meditative state, maybe even in general, just the way we are able to live our lives to produce compassion or love or mercy or forgiveness in our daily round of activities. We would like Quo to give us some sort of an idea how we might be able to be of service in this respect, in strengthening the grid, the road to fourth density from where we are in our daily round of activities, in dealing with the catalyst of the day, with our own distortions, with our desire to serve and our feeling like sometimes it's just too much. Carla channeling. Quo. We are those of the principle known to you as Quo, and we greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We consider ourselves to be those who are part of what this instrument calls the Godhead principle, and we speak to that part of you which has called us here, that part of you which is also the Godhead principle. It is in the sympathetic vibration of that likeness of focus and polarity that we link and find ourselves in this most agreeable and blessed condition of sharing this time of seeking with you. We thank you for the privilege of being called and for the careful way in which our nature was defined by the parameters of the tuning and challenging of this instrument. We greatly appreciate the care being taken with the tuning of the connection to enable us to experience clear communication with this particular, shall we say, biological instrument. One of the more complicated wind instruments, shall we say, being the human bodily instrument. In this case, the instrument is also the composer of the song, which creates a fascinating context for us to work within in shaping these awkward bundles which are called words. To attempt to speak of concepts which exceed the limit of any words, we ask only that each take what seems sensible and helpful from those thoughts we share and leave the rest behind. For we are not those who are in authority, but rather those who share experiences as your neighbors and co-creators. We are glad this day to speak with you concerning the metaphysical road building in which this particular instrument and the one known as Jim have been much interested in late months, as the experience of entering fully into the 21st century and dealing with the weight of previously known information has brought these entities to a condition of perception at this juncture, which seems to indicate work in the direction of this metaphysical road building. We would first comment upon the concept of time, for much of what we say has a certain timbre which can create sense only within a limited context, that being the illusory context of space-time. The metaphysical universe is not the space-time universe, and so consequently, a query concerning the physical aspects of metaphysical work draws a response which must straddle both space, time, and time-space considerations. The outer activism, which is the interest of this instrument especially, is dependent upon a network of information and data concerning space-time projections of time-space events. If one focuses upon the space-time continuum and its illusory march of progress, shall we say, the energies of metaphysical structure recede, and the more the effort is made to interact with space-time events and space-time values, the less direct will be the effect of such work upon time-space or metaphysical continuum, which is a consideration when one is attempting to connect space-time to time-space, insofar as each entity involved is capable of embodying that linkage. In this regard, we would state our observation that fear and fear-based concern is easily the most challenging foe that stands before the faithful warrior of light at this juncture. We do not criticize or judge entities for their fear-based responses to the space-time events which unfold as part of the consensus reality of your illusion. There certainly would appear to be concerning and substantial issues, which indicate almost certain disaster. From our viewpoint as those observing this global culture from the outside in, we would state another observation, that being that although it may have escaped your notice, there have been a few years in recorded history in which there was not disaster, catastrophe, and war. There also has not been a time within your recorded history when there has not been a wide range of options for solving all perceived problems. That which appears to be worthy of great fear on another level is precisely that which may be embraced with the most surety, because it is in challenging and novel times that one begins within incarnation to learn about the self and to be surprised, encouraged, invigorated, and renewed by the experiences one has in learning the depths of the self's emotions, and the self's hopes and dreams. Is it hunger that is feared? Then when that time comes of hunger comes, take what little you have and give it away to the common good, and you will find that you can create miracles of loaves and fishes. Do you fear the cold? Take heart, and when you are cold, move to the company of others who are also cold and embrace them, and together you may live through the night and know the heart of another. Do you fear having nothing? Take heart, for truly all entities possess nothing, but merely share that which comes their way, that which has been allowed to come their way by circumstances, by pre-incarnational request, and by the desire to learn. Do you fear not having enough? Embrace thankfulness and gratitude and count the blessings of what tiny things you may have in the face of deprivation, and you will find yourself endlessly giving thanks. For once the eyes of gratitude and thankfulness have been opened, it may more and more easily be seen that all circumstances are those for which one may give thanks with a true, honest, and cheerful heart. For insofar as circumstances seem difficult, just so far shall they later be revealed as the healers of those deeply buried sores that must be lanced. Each entity has placed in its own path those things which look remarkably like stumbling blocks and sources of great suffering, and they can be seen that way with perfect logic and sanity. We do not suggest that losing fear is a logical process. We suggest rather that the way the process of living has its impact upon a given soul is dependent upon that soul's point of view and attitude. We are suggesting that the point of view or attitude is powerful and central to the goal of becoming a working crystal, which is indeed sending blessed and transmuted light received from the infinite creator by personal intention into the planetary fourth density, third density connection, creating the lighting up of the fourth density grid. Losing fear is therefore a tremendous and powerful resource to pursue. The ways of losing fear often have to do with more and more becoming aware of how fear has embedded its trigger points within the network of antennae which your personal structure of perceptive priorities presents to you. First, second, third, fourth, and so on. A great deal of what is gained from the input of data into the mind and the consciousness has to do with how items are prioritized in the consciousness. The process of perception is far other than the way it seems. Entities neither hearing with their ears nor seeing with their eyes, but rather forming a digitized information grid from not only the present moment grid, but previously organized grids of expectations. Changing the expectation grid of one's prioritizing software, shall we say, changes the information package that one receives from oneself as it inputs the data. In a way, we are speaking very mechanically, and yet the mind works along logical, mechanical, and habitual routes, taking shortcuts when it can once it has decided upon the priorities. Moving into the prioritizing mechanisms within the self is deep work and takes a good deal of self-awareness that can usually be achieved only through time. Consequently, this is a long-term goal, for fear is not an absence of love. It is not what is left over when love is ended. Fear is the dark side of love. Fear has its legitimacy and must indeed be embraced within the self and asked to avail its gifts to the use of the light. Fear becomes courage when fear is faced, and the wolf that has caused the fear, rather than being fled or being slain, is invited into the heart to be loved, understood, accepted, and charmed. We ask you to become storytellers to yourselves. telling yourself the story of the hero or the heroine that you are, the warrior of light who makes so many mistakes and must iron its costume daily, and yet somehow, though the costume is baggy and the efforts are unavailing, this story of the self moves on as one of the fighter that will not quit but never fights against but only for. Gaze upon those fear reactions and ask your most intelligent and clever self what creative things that you can do to target, come to understand, and come to have sympathy for each direction of fear-based thought. Not rooting it out, not judging the self for fear, but having the compassion upon the entity that is involved in a flesh, blood, and bone illusion. Each entity will perish from the third density experience. This source of fear is, shall we say, the parent of all other fears, that fear of ceasing to be. We would ask through faith that the entity posit to itself whether it is worthwhile to fear death, or whether it might not be more skillful to see the inevitability of that, and rather than shrinking from that inevitability, to turn that story from that fear of death to the love of each and every day and hour that remains to you. Time, in terms of space-time, is an illusion, yet it is within this illusion that each of you dwells. It is within this incarnation that each of you now acts, and within your continuum and your illusion. It is indeed a very intense time of transformation and change for the planet upon which you live. Consequently, there are indeed aspects of the metaphysical transformation of the planet's population and its very global entity that poke up rather abruptly as mountains on the topography of the present time and space. Many catastrophes have already been seen of the natural kind and of the, shall we say, human or political kind, and you may see that these forces and energies become more sharply delineated, more clarified, and more obvious. Embrace this time as a time when those who are steadfast shall be those who are able to function as light transducers, keeping the energy moving into the grid which is made up of love. When an entity's heart has been able to relax and free itself from fear and from the need to protect, it becomes soft and fertile and yeasty with the food needed for the seeds of love to blossom into those beanstalks that truly do constitute a ladder between earth and heaven. Each is aware of the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. This entity gave away its cows in exchange for magical seeds, and the entity came home and planted these seeds and grew itself a beanstalk that reached into another world. It is having the faith, in very non-physical ways, to sell the cows that gives to the Lightworker the ability to grow beanstalks between third density and fourth. The beanstalk is a seed of faith, and each of you is one who gently and sometimes unknowingly cradles that seed. When you birth it, that is the beginning of the self as an impersonal portion of the Godhead principle. When one can see oneself as, shall we say, a priestly or magical figure, one then is able to move from a metaphysical position, from a position of embracing time-space and time-space values. This is the other side of releasing fear. That is, the discipline of continuing in remembrance of love, continuing in remembrance of who the self is, continuing in remembrance of why the entity is here. We would close this discussion, or shall we say this primary discussion, by touching upon those interests that this instrument has in more specific details of ways to have organization come to a physical effort to support the concept of helping the fourth density or Christ grid become stronger, helping the connection between this world and the next to solidify. You may tell from the balance of our cosmic sermonette that most of the work has to do with the state of mind for love, and all of the energetic essences which underlie and create your space-time reality have to do with the energies of love, those energies which created you, in which you can focus as co-creators, allowing your will and your desire to direct those healing and infinitely beneficial energies of unconditional love that flow through each entity ceaselessly from the Creator. This state of mind is always the choice of the entity, and indeed constitutes the greatest and most continual choice of the incarnation. Where shall the thought settle down, in love or in fear? When one sees the self in fear, do not abandon the self, do not correct the self, but sit with the self and look at the fear. Let it be. Let it wash over and through one, seeing the self as permeable, as healable, as fallible, but also as a shining hero dealing with the most amazing adversity. This is your story. We ask you to stick to it. We ask you to think well of yourself. The one known as S in channeling enjoys creating a common ending for these channelings, just as this instrument enjoys closing with those words which mean farewell and peace in the Creator. This entity closes its channelings with the thought, play well together. This is a great road-building statement. Those who play well with themselves and with each other are honoring the Creator and the forces of unity that will release fear and open the heart. There is some science which can be applied to a linear calculation of those plans, which entities may create for themselves in order to give more shape and focus to what may otherwise seem an amorphous goal, that of lighting the planet and creating that solid connection to the next world which is at this time attempting to be born and certainly having its own difficulties. We commend all and any efforts to serve. Needless to say, we must leave plans which have to do with physical calculations in the hands of those in whose free will these plans are being tossed about as dreams, hopes, and visions. We commend the group effort suggested for exploring such services and would echo the sentiments of this instrument as spoken prior to this channeling, having to do with being willing to rest in mystery and resonance to a certain extent in feeling one's way towards the blending of the physical and metaphysical in service. We thank this instrument for its service at this time and would transfer this contact to the one known as Jim, leaving this instrument in love and in light. We are those of Quo. Jim channeling. I am Quo, and we greet each of you in love and in light through this instrument. It is our privilege at this time to ask if there may be any other queries to which we may speak at this session of working. Question. In each meditation we have with you, we offer the lives of those friends and family who may be in need, but since we may not always ask specifically to do that for them, would that be considered any violation of free will per se? I am Quo, and we are aware of your query, my brother. There is the gift of the one Creator, which is the prana, the love energy, which is available to all entities as a source of the life-giving qualities of the one Creator. It is to these energies that one adds one prays for the well-being of another. Thus, the entity has the free will to work with these energies as they are given in the daily round of activities, perhaps enhanced by those who pray, by those who wish the entity well, but these energies are added to those which are usually utilized without one's being aware of them. Is there another query, my brother? Question. I seem to have a great affinity for quartz crystals and points, and I was wondering if there is any other light that you could shed on why that might be so, whether it's past incarnations or just the energies they allow or anything like that I can contemplate on. I am Quo, and am aware of your query, my brother. We find that there is some general information of this nature which we may share without infringement. We would suggest that there has been within your pattern of incarnations a great predilection towards these means of communication and healing which you have utilized in various ways in different incarnations. Thus, there is within your being a portion of your learning and service which resonates to these crystalline entities and their abilities to enhance one's well-being, one's level of élan vital, shall we say, the energy which powers one in the daily round of activities, and in the geometric precision with which these crystalline entities may be utilized for healing, for communication, and for the far-seeing, shall we say. Is there another query, my brother? I'd just like to ask, since it was my question and also my channel about the grid, if there was anything that you could channel through the one known as Jim that you couldn't get through me because of my biases. If so, I'd be glad to bear it. I am Quo, and am aware of your query, my sister. No, we do not wish to be overly generous in our compliments to your abilities as an instrument. We would suggest that there is a clear entry into your being which we may utilize in speaking our thoughts through your instrument. We feel no distortion or hesitation or bias that would hinder our ability to communicate that which we wish to communicate. Is there a further query, my sister? No, thank you. Thank you for the indication. I'll look at it very carefully. We move on to a channeling delivered on May 19th, 2002. Our question today is sort of two-pronged. The first part has to do with the energies, the spiritual vibrations of the evolution of the planet, its population, and each of us individually as well. Some people spoke of being able to feel these vibrations more intensely now. We are wondering if you could describe these vibrations to us, their nature, and how we could work more harmoniously with them so that they are not so overwhelming. The second part of the question was, when you speak to groups like ours, could you give an indication of how it is you feel when you have been successful? What are the usual needs of the group, and what are the services that you provide to meet those needs? Carla channeling. We are those of the principle known to you as Quo, and we greet you in the love and light of the one infinite creator in whose service we are. We thank each of you for being part of the circle of seeking. It is a true blessing to us to be able to be called to your group and to share in your meditation and the beauty of your energies. It is a unique pleasure, different each time, as each of you has come to a different place in your seeking and in your process, and each shows us new colors and tones of colors each time that we meet. We also greet those who have not been to our group before. Each is most appreciated. The time that you have found for the seeking creates the opportunity for us to serve, and we are most thankful. We ask only that you listen to our words with discrimination, taking only that which seems good to you and leaving the rest behind. This enables us to share without being concerned that we will infringe upon your free will. Your query this day is most interesting, covering as it does two seemingly disparate subjects, that of the energies that are transforming your planet, and that of the way that we serve and the kind of results that we hope for. Let us begin by becoming more aware of the energy that each of you sits with, as if you were the center of an energy nexus, which indeed you are. Feel that feeling of being the self, the energies of essence, those energies that are so familiar and so near, and at the same time perhaps often unthought of, as though because they do not show, because they do not have substance within the physical world, they are left somewhat neglected. Relax all of those tensions that are confining or narrowing your energy stream, and come into the full feeling of yourself. For each of you is a spark of the Creator. Through each of you, the universe has its being. That consciousness which you carry is the heart of yourself and is infinitely precious. Now we would ask you to become aware of the energy of others within this circle of seeking. Feel that entity upon your right and that entity upon your left. Begin to sense the link between each, the overriding unity of identity between you and those within the circle with you. Allow that sensation of shared aura to begin to rotate in a clockwise manner about the circle. What color is that light? It will be somewhat different for each, as each views from a unique point of view. To some it may be white, to some it may be golden, to some it may be violet. Whatever your perception, for you it is an accurate and helpful one. It is your subconscious way of describing yourself for yourself, this sensed energy. Now we would ask you to become aware, if you will, of our energy as a kind of end-girding support to your meditation. It is as if we are a carrier wave that enables your meditation to be somewhat more sturdy and more stable. Now we would ask you to open up your senses and become aware of the energies of the earth under your feet, the sky, the air, the wind above this roof, the warmth of the sun, the motion of the planet, and the energies of the planet and stone, sea, and river, plants, and animals. As your heart beats, so the rhythm of the earth itself is affected. As the tides turn, so the beating of your heart is affected. Each of you has ripples of effect upon each other. Each whom you meet ripples out and affects you by the wake of energy that each brings and shares. This is the world of your energetic body. This is the world of an incredible variety of beings that live within the inner planes of your planet. Many teachers and many healers, many wise entities, and certainly many beings of mischief and fun, as well as those darker entities that would delight in feeding upon the darker emotions that you may offer, pain and fear, the suffering. It is a rich and challenging atmosphere, the atmosphere of this energetic being that you are. It makes the world of physical reality very simplistic and almost like a comic book, for the strokes are broad and not as subtle as the gentle and infinitely moving and flowing waves of the energy that you are. at this time among your people. And as the one known as D says, for some time before this, the energy upon your planet has been transformed as the Earth Mother of your planet itself moves inexorably to and through the process of giving birth to fourth density. The change within your planetary energy grid is remarkable. Indeed, there is a new grid, which this particular instrument tends to call the Christ grid, but which may be seen in general to be a pattern of energy nexi, which surround the planet like a net. We would say a net of love, a net that is made of fourth density light. It is woven with golden strands offered by each of you and offered by many, many entities within the inner planes of your planet as well. There are many beings who have dedicated themselves at this time within the inner planes to the ceaseless task of offering thanks and praise as they move along these lines of energy and connect one point to another with strand after strand of coherent light, which is that stream which is created when each of you prays, meditates, or opens the heart in any way. The transformational light is profoundly different from that light which you have been processing through your physical body and the finer bodies of your energy system in previous years. Its energy is of an entirely transformed nature, and may we say that this energy is oftentimes that which creates some discomfort for those who have become aware of it and who have begun to respond to it. In any change there is discomfort, even in the happiest of changes, such as in the occasion of marriage or upon the occasion of birth. And in a way, there is both a birth and a marriage taking place at this time. The birth is that of the planet beneath your feet, and the marriage is that between the self and the fourth density portion of yourself, which you have brought within you into this incarnation to be activated by this light at this time. It is a marriage of self with a higher aspect of self. And yet this new aspect of self is a stranger, a new portion of the self that is yet to be fully recognized. Under the influence of this light at the cellular level, your genetic structure is being offered the opportunity to become more organized. This instrument's scientific knowledge is slim, but we find within her mind the concept of DNA, and we say that at this time each of you is capable of creating new strands of DNA, which allow a far more open door between the contents of the conscious mind and the treasures of the subconscious mind. Many of you perhaps are experiencing various aspects of your subconscious at this time, flowing far more freely into the physical awareness. This can have very discomfiting effects at different times. It depends entirely upon the amount of attention that you are paying and the growing ability that each has to see through the circumstances of your daily life into its essence. Some of you have been speaking of experiencing various symptoms, and this is to be expected. This is a typical response to new vibrational levels, and indeed it does create a great sense of great intensity from time to time in most awakening entities. Is this a blessing? Feel certainly that it is. We feel that it is a very helpful and powerful time for each of you. It is as though you are rediscovering an aspect of yourself that we would call mastership or priesthood. For within this new vibration, it is possible to sense yourself as a spiritual being entirely, a creature of spirit, a minister of love and light. Within this very exciting time among your people, our hope is to assist in opening the awareness of those who seek to do so. The one known as S was asking what sort of service we provide and what the results are. The service that we provide through this instrument is linear, and yet we find that when we speak these poor words of language through instruments such as this one, we are able to use the coloration and timbre of that instrument's emotions and personality to enhance and to stain our very simple message of love and light with the colors of individual personality, incarnation, and point of view. We must blend with the energies of instruments such as this one. We find it a most interesting and creative way to work with those concepts that fit so poorly into the shape of human language, and yet explode with meaning when allowed to rest in the space between the words. In the next density, you will be able to open that telepathic sense that eludes you most of the time within this density, and you will grasp the poverty of language compared to the richness of concept communication. For words are a filter to the wholeness of truth, straining out many things in order to say one. Perhaps our most fundamental service, as we perceive it, is in bringing to people in groups such as this, and as they ask individually, an experience of unconditional love. We do come to you in love. We come to you in radiant light. We float upon the wings of utmost purity and meaning that we know. We hope to blend with each of you in such a way as to enhance your own sense of joy and peace and balance. We open our arms and embrace you. We love so much. Each of you is a master who has not yet fully become aware of that. This instrument was speaking earlier about how foolish he felt. We find that this is the human experience in cameo, that feeling of being inadequate to the moment, of being imperfect and one step behind, of not being the one who has a clever word, but the one who stands in silence thinking seriously of something clever to say. How true it is that each of you suffers within this illusion of life on earth, each in a very unique way. Not all entities experiences the same thing, but each has its patterns of light and dark. Each has its travails and sorrows and its joys. Each has those shining moments and those moments of bleak despair. Our hope in this work is to enter into relationship with those who ask for communion and companionship in such a way that there is an enhanced sense of the reality and sturdiness of love within your being, within your life experience, and in the very air around you. We would like to create for each a more substantial bubble of fourth density, that you may walk within as you go about your business upon planet Earth. Oftentimes we work on the individual level to join a meditation. When entities do not meditate or ask for us on the conscious level, but are calling for comfort upon the unconscious level, then it is that we work with dreams in order to create within the dream state that comfort and safety that oftentimes is missing in the life of those who wish to serve the light. It is a peculiarity of the spiritual path that it at once brings all entities together and isolates each within its own process. We hope to be a healing influence for those who sense themselves as being isolated and stuck in lack of communication and lack of companionship. For those who, like this instrument was saying earlier, are attempting to pray on the run, we simply attempt to act as a carrier wave beneath the chores of every day. Our advantage is that we are very used to working with the energy bodies. It is our version of a physical body. As beings of energy in a far more conscious manner than each of you, we are somewhat more able to facilitate the blending of energies. It is as though we come to encourage and support each of you, and then call you forth, as the spirit and spiritual energies always do, to minister to each other. For in truth, there is nothing that we do that you cannot do as well. It is a matter of experience on a conscious level versus inexperience on a conscious level. However, beneath the threshold of consciousness, we are completely and utterly equal, and that which you know within yourself is precisely as full and whole in knowledge as that which we hold and know. Our results are in the sense of feeling that we have been effective, enormously uneven, and we are quite content with this apparent variation in success. It is not a matter of filling a specific quota or creating a specific result. For us, it is a matter of finding ways to communicate within your density that do enhance but do not infringe upon the identity, the wholeness, or the integrity of each of you. If we could give you a feeling of how we see you, it is as entities of enormous courage, sacrifice, and beauty. Each of you, in choosing to come into incarnation, did indeed take a chance in terms of the sacrifice of comfort, for within the spirit world, there is that lack of a veil between the self and the glory of all that is. Wordsworth once wrote in a poem that infants come into this world trailing clouds of glory. Glory is a much underused word, and that there truly is a glory to the present moment. There truly is a glory to the universe, and there truly is a glory to thank the Creator for. One has only to gaze into the creations of the Father to become aware in a deep and an intimate way what glory is there. The blooms of the iris and the coral bell, the shoots of the tree that are fully green. This burgeoning and swelling time of spring among your people is truly bursting with glory from every hedgerow and every roadside. Yet there is always that glory within. There is always that urge to seek for the Shangri-La, the place of perfect meditation, the place of great power that somehow will assist in bringing those powers to a place where they can be used. And we say to you that it is your divine self that contains the power that you seek. Certainly one can feel the strength of places of power, and yet we suggest to you that as the planet itself evolves, those places of power move around. Also, as the fourth density energy takes hold and becomes stronger, each of you will become more and more aware of yourselves as places of power, people of power. How much you did give when you gave up the knowledge of who you are, of the tremendous experience that has been your palette upon which you have drawn to create this particular lifetime. There is within each a watchtower. In this watchtower there is a light. When you turn on this light, you are as a lighthouse that beckons the weary sailor home from the sea, that warns of the rocks and shoals so that the boats may come in and land safely. We call you masters. And then perhaps your question is, what shall we do with this mastership? And we say to you that you came here to be healers of one kind or another, but not in the old sense of the healing arts, such as doctors and nurses. For each has the capacity to heal in his own way, some of you by the things that you say, some of you by those whom you attend and take care of, some of you by the sharing of the energies, some in the more specific ways of healing nature, in the laying on of hands and body work. The difficult thing to express to you is the healing nature of many things that do not appear within your culture or your experience. To be those things that have a profoundly healing influence, yet those that clean their house with a certain kind of love and blessing are creating a healing space and claiming that space as sacred. When one is scrubbing a toilet, one does not particularly think that one is healing, and yet you are creating an atmosphere for yourself of cleanliness and beauty, taking care of, loving, and nurturing your environment. This too is a healing. The cooking of food, the paying of bills, all of these very mundane things that this entity was speaking of earlier as her QuickBooks week. All the ledgers and columns and figures are not abandoned to ugliness, but yet contain beauty also, contain sacredness also, when they are approached with love, when they are approached as honored and respected activities within the life, they too become lessons and create blessings. Most of all, they come to invite you to a fuller life, to an expanding and enhanced life, and we hope to help in your stability as you open like a flower. We would at this time transfer this contact to the one known as Jim. Ask any questions that remain within the group before we adjourn. We thank this instrument and leave it in the love and light we are those of Quo. Question: I have one of major import. War Emblem won the Preakness and the Derby. Is he going to win the Belmont? I am Quo, and am aware of your query, my brother. We have but a small idea as to the outcome of such events, but we do not move along those lines of investigation that would require that we invest a great deal of our energies in such endeavors. The kind of contacts that we are able to enjoy, given our origin outside of your planetary system, is that which we enjoy at the present moment, the mind-to-mind contact that has as its focus the nature of the spiritual journey, and how it is accomplished through the daily round of activities. We are sure that there are sources more formidable than ours that may offer an opinion upon this topic. Is there another query at this time? No, not for me. I was just yanking your chain. I am Quo, and we thank you, my brother. Is there another query at this time? Yes. I have a question. My son is going through quite an emotional ordeal with his job, and he is going to be a new father. I'm trying to advise and help him, but there is only so much that each person can do. Each person has to push their own load. It all boils down to trying to advise someone about their spirituality, whether they name it as such or not. Do you have any suggestions as how I can aid a person who is going through a pretty hard time? I am Quo. We apologize for the delay and appreciate your patience. It is the desire of many seekers such as yourself, my brother, to be of service to those who are in a kind of distress, as you might call it, needing that which they do not know, seeking in a general fashion that which specifically speaks to the spirit. As you seek to be of service to such entities, our only recommendation is to speak those words from your heart, which are appropriate for the moment. Each moment is different, each entity is different. Thus, there is great room for individual expression in the sharing of that which you have to offer. As you are the same as they, your opinions may be weighed in an even-handed manner, shall we say, there being no great reason why any entity should listen to or follow your advice. You are free to speak as you will. We have oftentimes recommended that it is well to put oneself in another's place mentally before attempting to serve that entity, in order that you may achieve a certain amount of appreciation of what the entity whom you wish to aid experiences in its personal life. We would recommend this once more as you seek to apprehend the qualities, the energies, and the opportunities that are making themselves available to such an entity, in order that this entity may take the step upon its own personal journey. Is there a further query, my brother? Yes. Just a little follow-up. There are lots of times that I feel that I know what to say to a person like that, my son or whoever. Sometimes I want to leap ahead and say this is something that he or she would want to hear. What I hear you saying is speak from your heart, speak the truth, and if that person doesn't like it, then it is probably catalyst for them to move ahead. Anyway, is that correct? Just to speak the truth and whatever happens will happen. I am Quo, and we agree with your estimation of this message that we were attempting to deliver. We find that you have spoken with eloquence and have spoken to the point. Is there a further query, my brother? Not for me. I just want to thank you for the vibrations. They were beautiful. I'm Quo. We are most grateful to you as well, my sister, for each in this group has provided us with vibrations of love and compassion, which make it possible for us to blend our energies with those of your group. We are most appreciative of the effort that each entity has made in order to be here this day and to share those vibrations that are from the heart. Is there another query at this time? No further queries. I am Quo, and it appears that we have exhausted the queries for the nonce. We shall again thank each for inviting our presence on this day in your circle of seeking. And we shall at this time take our leave of this instrument and this group. We are known to you as those of Quo. We leave each in the love and in the ineffable light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, my friends. So we get a lot from these two amazing channelings. In the first channeling, the key focus, when asked about how we can repair the grid, the Christ grid, and when we're talking about the grid in particular, the concept is that as fourth density forms, a grid forms around the planet. There are nexus points within this grid that have a focal point of energy, and it is part of the process of the creation of the simulation that we're in, of the creation of the new illusion that we're in, and it has a direct effect on our reality. And so they're asking, hey, can we help in repairing or fixing or helping the establishment of this grid? One good place to see a discussion of this grid is Drinvalo Melchizedek's The Flower of Life, which they referred to several times in other channelings through Ra and Quo. So in particular, they ask this question, and they don't get very specific. They're saying that the grid is always changing and that it is a matter of fear. The grid itself is affected by how we react and open to fear. And we can learn to deal with and transduce this fear, understand it, then it would help in healing the grid. The second channeling was very powerful. It felt like a sort of meditation in the way that they explained how they are energetic beings and the way that they transfer energy and the way that they join us in meditation. By the way, you should have meditated with us for Meditating with Quo. Check out that meditation. It's a powerful way in which you can meditate with Quo. And I've got some incredible reports from people that have felt a tangible presence from Quo. You can do this in your meditations. And they're sharing how each of us become a focal point of power. When eventually, as the planet grows, we become the nexus points on this grid. And that's what we're doing. And they also are explaining, as we move into this power, we become masters and priests and spiritual adepts. And because of us going in and going through these processes, we become powerful. And with this power, we can heal. We can heal others. We can heal ourselves. That's the process that we're going through. There's lots of aspects to this. And the best way for us to heal the planet is to heal ourselves. In the process of doing this, we are energetic beings, and we have a wave that carries out from us and comes back to us. And so this healing energy goes out to others and comes back to us. And the more we do this, the more we awaken to who we truly are, the more we become healed and aware of our fourth density body and awareness. There's so much to this, and perhaps I'm not explaining it entirely well, but I do believe that there is a grid, and also check out my grid meditation in which you can access the grid and heal from it and utilize the grid. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com, and welcome to The Reality Revolution.